Because Prince Harry is accusing sources of attempting to sabotage his reconciliation with the King.
Yeah, and this is really interesting because it does make you wonder, because, of course, he himself denies reports that he branded his recent reunion with his father formal, distinctly formal.
Well, it's the first meeting in about 2 years, and Harry apparently joked he felt more like an official visitor rather than a member of the royal family.
But now his spokesperson said the claims were pure invention fed, one can only assume, by sources intent on sabotaging any reconciliation between father and son.
Let's talk to royal commentator Jack Stooks. Jack, good morning to you.
Hi,
it has to be said, there is an air of truth to this, isn't there? The idea that insiders are trying to put a stop to this. The idea that it was a very formal meeting is frankly ridiculous.
I mean, yes, you know, we've seen Harry time and time again have these meetings and go back and tell everybody what was said. Now, the reports that are coming out are saying that they're saying that it was a formal meeting, and they're saying that a gift was given. That's all that they've come up with. They haven't actually said what was spoken about at that meeting. So I do not think that Harry's going around telling anybody about this meeting. I think he does want reconciliation. I think he does want, to be back in the fold and actually be working with the family again. I know he's spoken about, time and time again, wanting to do a little bit of royal meetings, a little bit of work here and there. And I think that what we gather is that the King may have said, no, it's all in or all out, just like the Queen said before. But I don't see a problem with this half in, half out, because if you look at all the figures of all the other royals that are doing public engagements, some years, Prince William does a lot less engagements than Princess Anne, for instance. So does that mean that year that Prince William was half out? No, it doesn't. It's ridiculous. The royals doing public events and public engagements, whether they do 5 public engagements a year or 200, they're still actually helping the royal family. So why is it that, Harry's not helping? And it does. It makes pure sense, especially in this moment in time when we've got an ill king who, we don't know how long he can carry on with his public duties. We really don't. I mean, he's an amazing person as he is. He sort of pushes and strives along. But I don't see that Harry's gone off and told anybody anything. I think it's all been sort of made up, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I mean, certainly any of the people I've spoken to, and so the journalists here in the newsroom behind us, you all think that this doesn't sound as though this was leaked by Harry. It really doesn't, because he's clearly very upset that any of it is in the papers, and he's saying that quite a few of the facts are actually untrue, demonstrably untrue, he says.
Yeah.
So if it wasn't Harry, then who was it? Now, he is sort of talking about the men in grey suits, which I'm afraid is the way Princess Diana used to talk, that people in the grey suits, the courtiers around, were briefing against her. And I can't help wondering now whether the courtiers think, frankly, it's better now if Harry stays away. So they're trying everything they can to keep him away.
Well, exactly. I mean, we don't actually know where it's coming from, like you said, and like you say, the men in grey suits. There are people like that within any business, as we know. There's people in the household that might not want the king seeing a certain person, so they might try and keep the king from seeing a certain person. They might suddenly have an idea that they don't like a certain person, so they might try and push that person out of a job. And we've seen that time and time again in so many businesses, so many companies. So it doesn't seem unreasonable to think that that's happening in the palace either. Now, Harry's been away as long as he has. And, some people in the palace might think, why should he be coming back in? But it's not really down to them, and it's not really down to, a person that may have seen the photo and, might have said to someone, oh, actually, I saw Harry holding a photo in the car on the way into Clarence House. I mean, it could be as simple as that, so it may not be coming from anywhere sinister, but no, we don't know where it's coming from, but it is odd, because normally we would hear exactly what was said in the meeting, and we haven't heard what was said. So I don't think it's coming from Harry, because it was probably only Harry and the King in that meeting.
Family, welcome back to the Royal Sussex Squad, your home for truth, clarity and shining a light on how Prince Harry and Meghan continue to stand tall against the lies, smears and manipulations of the British media machine. Today we are going to dive into a very important story that once again shows how the press twists things to suit their narrative. This time involving Prince Harry, his ongoing legal battle against associated newspapers, and how Prince William and Kate Middleton's names got dragged into the mix. Now, before we break it all down, let's be very clear. The British media has an obsession with trying to paint Harry as a troublemaker, a rogue prince, the one always stirring the pot, when in reality all he is doing is fighting for accountability, justice and privacy, not just for himself, but for anyone who has been violated by the disgusting criminal practices of the tabloid press. This week, headlines tried to make it look like Prince Harry personally threw his brother and sister-in-law under the bus in his lawsuit against the Daily Mail's publisher, Associated Newspapers. They want you to believe that Harry deliberately set up William and Kate, dragging them into a courtroom fight they wanted no part of. But here's the truth, the real truth that the tabloids won't tell you. Prince Harry had no knowledge that William or Kate would be mentioned in those court filings. Zero. None. The documents came from investigators, invoices and disclosure evidence, not from Harry himself. A source close to Harry was crystal clear. Harry is not responsible for the arguments presented by his legal team, nor is he personally dragging William into anything. The evidence stands on its own. It's not Harry making things up, it's the mountain of receipts showing decades of illegal behaviour by the press. Let's pause on that for a moment, because what we're talking about here isn't petty gossip or some tabloid squabble. These are serious allegations. Phone hacking, blagging, confidential information, commissioning burglaries, even planting listening devices. It's straight out of a crime drama, but it's real life. And Harry is one of the few members of that family brave enough to stand up and say, enough is enough. And yet, what do the press do? Instead of focusing on the criminality, instead of focusing on the shady tactics of associated newspapers, they spin the story to make Harry look divisive. They act as though Harry is trying to destroy his brother's reputation, when in fact Harry is simply seeking justice. Isn't it telling that they'd rather blame Harry than blame the actual criminals? That's the smear machine at work. Now, let's talk about the context of William and Kate's names appearing. According to the filings, there was a payment in 2003, yes, 20 years ago, for details about William's 21st birthday party, which had an out-of-Africa theme. That's not Harry's fault. That's the result of shady dealings by investigators and journalists, and the evidence just happens to surface now as part of this case. The same applies to Kate Middleton. Records were found from a private investigator who did occupancy checks on her family home and obtained numbers from a friends and family list, including Kate's own mobile. Again, this isn't Harry snooping. This isn't Harry digging up dirt. This is evidence that Associated targeted his circle unlawfully. And let's not forget, Harry is not alone in this fight. He is joined by some very high-profile, respectable names: Sir Elton John, David Furnish, Baroness Lawrence, Sadie Frost, Liz Hurley, Sir Simon Hughes. These aren't people who take lawsuits lightly. These are individuals who've been harmed, violated and disrespected by tabloids and are willing to go to court to prove it. The fact that Harry is standing shoulder to shoulder with them speaks volumes. But notice how the headlines rarely centre those other claimants. Instead, it's always about Harry. Why? Because he sells papers. Because painting him as the villain keeps the outrage machine going. And because the royal institution Yes, the palace machinery itself has long been complicit in feeding Harry to the wolves so others could be protected. Let's bring William back into this discussion, because the hypocrisy here is staggering. Remember last year when Harry revealed that William had actually reached a secret settlement with news group newspapers over phone hacking? William accepted a massive payout, reportedly around 1 million in 2020. That wasn't front-page outrage. That wasn't presented as William dragging anyone into court. That was quietly brushed under the rug. So, when William takes a payout, it's dignified and silent. But when Harry demands transparency and refuses hush money, suddenly he's the bad guy. The double standard is blinding. And yet Harry keeps going, knowing full well that the media will punish him at every turn, knowing full well that his own family won't defend him, and knowing that he and Meghan will continue to be scapegoated. That's what courage looks like. And family, let's be real. If this evidence had surfaced mentioning anyone else, a celebrity, a politician, a business tycoon, the press would frame it as proof of how widespread and damaging the tabloids' criminal practices were. But because it's William and Kate, the narrative shifts to, look at Harry dragging his brother into drama again. Shameful. Absolutely shameful. This is why Meghan and Harry were right to step away from that toxic environment. This is why they left the UK for California, where they could raise their children in peace. Because no matter what they do, fight for justice, launch successful projects, or simply live their lives, the tabloids will twist the story against them. But here's the thing. The truth always has a way of coming out. Associated Newspapers is shaking right now. They can deny the allegations all they want, calling them lurid or preposterous. But we've seen this pattern before. First they deny, then the receipts come out, and suddenly they're paying millions in settlements. That's how the Murdoch empire collapsed in the phone hacking scandal, and that's why Harry's fight matters. He's not just fighting for himself. He's fighting for accountability in an industry that has ruined countless lives with impunity. And let's also not forget the human side. Think of what it means for Harry to see his brother's name pop up in court filings. You know Harry doesn't want to drag William through the mud. You know he doesn't want his family's dirty laundry exposed like this. But Harry didn't create the mess. The tabloids did. And if William feels uncomfortable, maybe his frustration should be directed at the press who violated his privacy, not at his brother who is simply uncovering the truth. So when the media tries to spin this as Harry versus William, don't buy it. This is the people versus the tabloids. This is about holding powerful organisations accountable for breaking the law. And Harry, despite all the smears, is the one standing on the right side of history. Family, I want you to take this away. Harry is not the villain here. Meghan is not the villain here. The villains are the tabloids, the editors, and yes, the enablers within the institution who prefer protecting the press over protecting their own blood. That's the truth they don't want you to hear. But that's the truth we'll always speak here at the Royal Sussex Squad. Prince Harry insists he's not to blame after William and Kate pulled into lawsuit drama. Not responsible. The Duke had no prior knowledge of the evidence filed as part of the wider claim, according to sources. Prince Harry was unaware that his brother would be mentioned in court papers, according to a source. The Duke of Sussex is among 7 individuals pursuing legal action against the Daily Mail publisher, Associated Newspapers, over alleged privacy violations dating back as far as 3 decades. Court filings submitted this week identified both Prince William and Princess Kate as alleged targets of blagging by private investigators. The documents were presented to the High Court by barrister David Sherborne, acting on behalf of the Duke and the other claimants. However, a source close to Harry told the Telegraph that he was not personally dragging Prince William into the lawsuit. The Duke, they said, had no prior knowledge of the evidence filed as part of the wider claim, and was not responsible for the arguments, evidence gathered and presented in disclosure or comments made by his lawyer. The reference to William relates to a 2003 payment, reportedly for details about his out-of-Africa-themed 21st birthday celebrations. Those details were said to have been found among 5 boxes of highly significant invoices provided to Harry's legal team last week. Mr. Sherborne told the court that while the invoices had not yet been fully examined, on an initial assessment they are likely to be highly relevant to the shared case. An additional amendment to Harry's claim referred to records from another private investigator, which included 2 occupancy checks on the Middleton family's address and 10 telephone numbers from a family and friends list, one of which was the Princess's mobile. Mr. Sherborne said the Duke would rely on this evidence to support his argument that Associated targeted his friends and associates through unlawful information gathering. The claimants also include Sir Elton John, David Furnish, Baroness Lawrence of Clarendon, Sadie Frost, Liz Hurley and Sir Simon Hughes. They accuse Associated of unlawful practices, including commissioning private investigators to plant listening devices in cars, blagging confidential information, arranging burglaries and intercepting phone calls. Associated denies the allegations, describing them as lurid and simply preposterous. Prince William has previously tried to avoid becoming involved in legal battles with the press over alleged illegal activity. But in March 2023, Harry disclosed that his brother had reached a quiet settlement with News Group newspapers, the publisher of The Sun, 3 years earlier. The prince was said to have accepted a very large sum, reportedly around £1 million, in 2020 after bringing a claim against both The Sun and the now closed News of the World. And with that, I want to thank you for riding with me through this breakdown. If you love the work we do here, defending Harry and Meghan, exposing the smear campaigns and standing up against the lies, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on your notifications and share this video so the truth gets out there. And if you want to go further in supporting this channel, you can drop a super thanks to help keep independent voices like ours alive and strong. Together we will not let the smear machine win. Together we stand with Harry and Meghan.